Okay. And what's eventually going to happen sooner or later is some country is going to melt down. Zimbabwe or Venezuela or somebody, their currency is going to go crazy, and 1,000% a week inflation, wheelbarrows of money to buy a loaf of bread, and everybody's going to say enough of that. And they're here, let's use this QR code thing on the cell phone. I'll sell you bread this way. I'll pay my employees this way. And a whole country will switch over to crypto, and it'll never go back. And then the dominoes will start falling as more companies go into crypto. And of course, this is going to change the whole nature of a nation state, because states, in order to be sovereign, have to control a currency. But this won't be possible anymore. So I don't know what that does. I don't know what'll happen. Okay, but it'll happen sooner or later. Network effect is what Facebook has. It's what Yelp has. It's what Google has. It's what Uber has. It's what eBay has, which is when you get the buyers and the sellers attract more buyers, the buyers attract more sellers, the drivers attract more riders, the riders attract more drivers, and then you can get an Uber in 3 minutes, and anybody starting another ride-sharing company would be just hopelessly hosed, because they could never get enough drivers or enough riders to ever compete with it, okay? And so this is how online companies, this is the most powerful force in the 21st century now, which is network effect. Well, with Bitcoin, you have the number one currency in a growing currency market, and it has network effect. There's all of these little feedback loops, which will eventually suck everybody in. Okay, now you're seeing the first suck happen right now in this bubble that we're in, is people get sucked into it, kind of like people got sucked into using an email address in 1998. Okay, it's like, well, everybody's talking about it, and but what happened with email and with social media is, well, if you want to talk to your friends, you have to use them, and so everybody ends up using them. Well, that's going to happen with Bitcoin. There's going to be all these other things that come into play. Now, people go, well, yeah, but that's not really going to happen because Bitcoin doesn't have any intrinsic value. Well, it's not like gold. Like, you can make stuff out of gold. I'm wearing a gold ring right now, so obviously gold is valuable, and there's a limited supply, so that does make it a great financial basis for a currency. But what it has is network effects. It's kind of like saying, well, why would anybody use Facebook in 2004? Well, you only need like a couple hundred people at Harvard to want to use it, and then the thing can get started, okay? So people already have enough reason to use it. Okay, so what's going on and what's going to happen? Okay, that's what everybody wants to know. Well, I've been here before, okay? And I can't tell you exactly where, but we are somewhere in this bubble right now with crypto, okay? We are, and it's madness, right? Well, so I want to walk you through kind of a Planet Perry version of like what's going to happen. And where I go with that is the structure of an epic story, okay? And I teach this in a lot of different ways in a lot of different places, that every epic story, and this could be Frodo, Lord of the Rings, this could be Star Wars, Harry Potter, King David, Jesus, Cinderella, almost anything, okay? All the great stories are epic stories, all right? And here's the structure of epic story. First, there's a memory, at least, of paradise. Everything was great. There's some Garden of Eden, or, Luke Skywalker's racing spaceships on a little planet, living in his mother's basement, and he's just happy doing that, right? But then there's a disaster and a summons to a reluctant hero. So the disaster is that Darth Vader and all these guys are destroying the universe, and Obi-Wan Kenobi appears in a hologram to Luke Skywalker and says, "We need you, Luke, we need you, we need you." Okay? And he doesn't want to do it, but he decides to do it anyway. Okay? Which leads to an early victory. Right? Like, yay, we won the battle, yay! But then you look and there's an hour and 21 minutes left in the movie, and you're like, I guess this probably isn't over yet. Right? Because then what happens next is there's a disaster. And now, I mean a big disaster. like a epic disaster, like nuclear meltdown, like all the soldiers are dead on the battlefield and the French horns are playing and there's smoke coming up and there's mist and it's really sad and the women are mourning and, you know, everybody's dead, okay? Then, and by the way, at this point, it looks absolutely hopeless. And the hero has to make the hero's usually still barely alive, but he basically has to give up his dream and confront some truth that he has not been willing to confront all of his life. Okay, and then here's what happens next, is that there is a moment of grace. Okay? That some providential, amazing thing happens and suddenly the story turns, okay? So in Lord of the Rings, in the Two Towers, here's an example. Helm's Deep is going down, right? All the orcs and everybody, they're pounding through and the king is despairing and the door is breaking and they're hiding the women and children to keep them alive for an extra 5 minutes. It looks totally hopeless, but then suddenly Gandalf comes around the corner with a bunch of kings that are recruited from some pact that was made 1,000 years ago and nobody even remembers it. And the kings come and they kill all the orcs and there's trees stomping around because Mother Nature itself has come to rescue humanity. That's an interesting theme right there. Okay. And the orcs are defeated and Helm's Deep does not go down. Okay. That is a moment of grace. And it's usually some providential, almost like divine intervention, right? Okay. Then the hero gets the kingdom and then the hero gets the girl. Okay. And that is the fractal pattern of an epic story. That is how it works. And it's in all the movies that you watch. Like watch for it. Paradise, disaster, summons, early victory, disaster, which is a devastating defeat. Moment of grace, kingdom, get the girl. There you go. Like write that down and see it in like every movie theater, okay? In every novel. All right, so here's the question for you. Where are we in the Bitcoin bubble? We are in the early victory. Okay, what's next? Disaster. That is what is next. When does the real growth happen? Here. So, now how do we get to this? Well, we get to this by 3 things that I value. 80-20. Okay, recognizing that small hinges swing big doors, and the star principle is an application of 80-20, and Bitcoin is the star currency. Okay, we get this from my value of pre-Gutenberg, which says as you look at the oldest patterns in history and you understand that they're going to repeat themselves over and over and over because history is fractal, just like 80-20 is fractal. Okay, and if you learn the history and if you learn to feel it in your bones, you'll have a sense, you'll have a natural, preternatural, primal sense of what's coming, what's going to happen before everybody else does, because everybody else is sleepwalking. And we have a value in Planet Perry for deep principles, okay? And like in the case of the .com thing, it was like, well, the deep principles are the fact that you got to put $1 in and get $2 out. You like money doesn't just magically appear, okay? And so this is what we value, and this is the kind of thinking that I try to teach people. I don't know anywhere else that does this. I mean, we do this here. I don't know of another place, but you can certainly learn it here. Now, I want to leave you. So I think I've told you enough that if you're paying attention, you can kind of figure out what's going to happen in the next 20 years. Because, 20 years from now, these currencies are going to dominate, just like the internet dominates. Okay, just like the internet has become unbeatable. That's going to happen. Okay, But there's going to be a lot of volatility and a lot of disaster that happens. Oh, and there's going to be another ingredient that wasn't so much in play during the dot-com, and it's fraud. Okay? Now, there was a lot of nonsense in the dot-com bubble, but most people wouldn't look back and characterize it as a bunch of massive fraud. But there will be, inevitably, somewhere or another, there will be some massive fraud that goes on with cryptocurrencies. One of them is, hey, I got a new cryptocurrency. I got a new cryptocurrency. Well, I mean, that's like, all these after .com, then you have .everything else. It's kind of like that. Like, well, okay, if you want .name or .sales or .marketing or whatever, I guess go ahead and buy it, but nobody's going to take it too seriously, right? One last closing thought. Just remember this. Pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. Take care and be wise.